everyone, and welcome to Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails, the weekly podcast that helps you grow your business, improve your life, and enjoy yourself along the way. I'm your host, Alan Langer, and every week we try to bring you the best thought leaders, the best business leaders, and the best minds out there to help you succeed in business and in life. So sit back, relax, grab your pad, your pen, and your favorite beverage, and enjoy the next episode of Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. This is your host, Alan Langer, with episode 45 tonight. I had a check. We are at 45 episodes already. Got another great guest tonight. And this guy is really interesting. I've known Torlando for a while now, and he's been bugging me to get on my podcast, and I keep apologizing to him that I keep forgetting to ask him. So now he's here, and I'm really glad he's here, and you guys are going to be glad because he's going to bring a lot to the table with his expertise. But before we get to Torlando, I just want to mention a couple of quick housekeeping notes. The website is marketingandsalespodcast.com, marketingandsalespodcast.com. If you go to the top and you see the Ask Alan segment, that's where you click on that and you send me a question. If I read your question on air, you will get a free signed autographed copy of my book sent to you. And we've got a really good question coming up from Jacob from Baltimore, Maryland later tonight. So with all that said, and without any further delay, Torlando Hakes is with us. Torlando, welcome to Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great, Alan. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Torlando has one of the better backgrounds I've seen and with some of my podcast guests. Very crisp and cool looking and a nice microphone. So he's ready to roll. So Torlando, tell everyone how we met. I was on your podcast, and tell people, kind of give us a little roundup of what you do and how you got to where you are and you know the success you've enjoyed so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe we met through our story brand connection.
We did.
And then I asked you to be on my podcast, the Paint Ed podcast, which is a paint industry specific show where we interview different professionals and different contractors and talk about the business side of paint contracting. And I had you on. It was really great. In preparation for that, I read your book. I thought that was cool. You invited me to your networking group, your weekly networking group. So we've become pretty well acquainted over the past few months, and that's been really great. So what Torlando's talking about? So Torlando he runs this podcast called Paint Ed. And he's also a brand ambassador for the Painting Contractors Association. Is that what PCA stands for? Yeah.
What's really cool, and what I've learned over this past year is there's so many different organizations. There's so many a gajillion different podcasts out there. There was, I think, podcast hosts went up like 40% during the year of COVID. But what I found was the podcast for the trades are really popular because it's a really specific podcast. Like I was on a podcast from a guy, he called himself the Tile Guy. Mm-hmm. And he invited me. I'm like, I'm going to be on a tile podcast? Like, what the hell is that? Turns out he has like 30,000 listeners. And then you with the same thing. It's such a great niche. And I think you guys are doing a really good service for the trades in getting out there with the educational side of it. So tell us a little bit about that. Yeah,
so being a PCA brand ambassador, it's not my day job. By day, I work with a software company called Periodic, and we sell booking software that has a really great application for the trades, being able to book estimates through your website and manage multiple salespeople and that sort of thing. But I got connected through the Painting Contractors Association from my former career as a paint contractor. I have a good friend named Art Snarzik, who you probably ought to have on this podcast, but he always calls himself a recovering contractor, and so that's kind of what I am. I'm a recovering contractor, and so I ran a painting business for about 12 years, and during that time, I got connected through my trade association. I was just a contractor member. Started showing up on webinars and then on the podcast as a guest. And at the national conferences that we would have, I would start speaking and running workshops and that sort of thing. And so I just became really involved in the trade association itself. And then when an opening came available for a new podcast host, I threw my name in the hat, and and here I am. So it's been an interesting journey. From the speaking, I wrote a book specific to the paint trade called Sprint, the Scrum Playbook for Paint Trade and Craftsman Professionals. It's a productivity book and productivity management book that is really powerful. And I can't say enough about getting involved in your trade associations. I imagine you have a few listeners who are in the trades, Alan. Is that right?
Yeah, I definitely do. And one of the questions that we're going to go over later is from a roofing contractor. So I'm sure he's not the only tradesman that I have listening. So, and I love that because, the perception out there, whether it's true or not, are that trades, the independent contractor guys don't know how to run a business. They don't know what they're doing. They just know how to put a roof on it. They know how to paint, or sometimes they don't even know how to do that. But I think there's a lot of real professional, smart guys that are doing this, and they want to learn how to do it the right way. And I think that's where the associations come in, and what you're doing comes in. So talk a little bit about that. Like, you run into some really cool, smart guys who just happen to be tradesmen, and being a tradesman is nothing, that's a pretty proud thing to be, and you can certainly make a lot of money doing it too.
Yeah, well, there's a huge range of companies, and the construction industry as a whole is one of the largest industries that there is. It's top 5, top 3 biggest industries in the world. So there's a lot of money to be made in building things and renovating things. What I think happened I think the reputation of the trades, has suffered. We lost a generation of good tradespeople because, back in the 80s and 90s, dad didn't want their kid to work his tail off and his fingers to the bone. And so sends them to college, and everybody's got to go to college. Everybody's got to go to college, and trades are kind of looked at as this fallback thing. But that tenor has been shifting in a huge way in the last decade. There are people who are just, they went through college, they did the whole thing, they went into the corporate world, corporate America, and realized, man, this isn't for me. And they've found that they can run a very successful, lucrative business, multi-million-dollar organization in several of the different trades, whether that's roofing or painting or plumbing, or these are some pretty good-sized small businesses out there. But the classic thing is that you fall into the trade. I fell into it. I graduated from high school and didn't really know quite what I was going to do. I knew I wanted to do a little bit of service work, and I needed to save up for a trip. And so a buddy of mine, his dad ran a construction company, said, "Hey, we're hiring painters. Have you ever painted anything before?" And my uncle had me paint his garage one summer, and so I said, "Well, there's that," and that was enough, right? And that's kind of par for the course, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But during that process, I fell in love with the trade, and I went to college, and I painted my way through school and graduated. But by the time I graduated, I had a real company on my hands, and I didn't feel the need or the desire to pursue my degree, which was in digital art. So I kind of needed the trade, but yeah, I built a really nice business. There are definitely ups and downs, times of plenty and times of not so plenty. But I know so many great people out there who they started that way. They started out with a brush in their hand, and then they, for whatever reason, they just wanted to grow, and they started learning, they started reading, and these are really smart, intelligent people who are building really wonderful companies out here.
And it's I love that, because I agree with you 1,000% that the last decade or so you've kind of seen that shift of the perception of the of the shoddy contractor. And trust me, they're still out there. And unfortunately,
Totally.
just like the bad salespeople are still out there and all of that stuff. But I have seen the shift. And, just here in Rhode Island, the guy in our Bob Salvis from our networking group, he runs a small business association networking group. And once a month, he has me come and speak. And I just speak to contractors. My whole talk is about helping them, figure out how to get optimized on LinkedIn and do a proper Facebook page. It's just stuff like that. And it is packed. There's like 200 people that show up. And I think that's freaking awesome. And it's almost like they don't need to be considered as like this separate entity. They're small business owners. Just because they're wearing jeans instead of slacks, they're still small business owners. They're all the same.
Yeah, and honestly, making the shift into a new industry, the similarities don't really end there. So I went from running a contracting business with a bunch of painters into the software industry, which you would think is night and day different, but it's not. All the stuff that I learned as a business owner in the trades is 100% transferable to what I'm doing. Did I have to modify my sales process and the way that I was marketing? Did I have to find a different pool of people for prospecting? Yeah, I had to do a lot of that. Did I have to modify some stuff? Sure, but our developers, they're like painters. They're craftspeople. They're making stuff. You still need things to be sold. You still need to produce things. So it's totally transferable. In fact, the book that I wrote for the paint trade and for the trades in general, Sprint, it's a process that I stole from software development. Scrum is from software. That's how they produce software. And when I learned about it, I was like, oh my gosh, this would work for producing jobs. And so it's totally, the widget of what you're making or what you're producing, that's different. That requires the technical skill and the expertise that you have. But the principles of running a business and the principles of sales, they remain the same across all industries.
I agree with you 1,000%. Before we I totally forgot, this is called Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. I know you're not a drinker, but I do have to do a virtual cheers. So I have tequila. You have your Yeti cup with some water. Good for you. I wish I was able to drink water, but cheers into the virtual camera, and then we'll go from here. But I totally forgot to do that at the beginning of the podcast.
Oh yeah.
So I have a couple of questions for you. Contracting is ultimate B2C sales. Like you are dealing with, for the most part. I mean, obviously you could be commercial,
especially residential. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're in residential, you're dealing with homeowners. And, me coming from the window sales world, dealing with homeowners, they could be an absolute pain in the ass. I mean, you're talking about having to deal with people in their homes. Give us a couple of tips on a B2C situation where do you talk to a customer, a homeowner differently than you would in a B2B situation? Because now you're in B2B. Now you're trying to sell the software for periodic. So what do you see the differences are? What would you say you had to adjust in that realm?
I think the biggest, that's a great question. I think that the biggest thing that I've had to adjust is the length of the sales cycle. Because when I was at home sales, I had my process dialed in so well that I knew that if I went into a house, I knew that 2 out of 3 people were going to choose me for the job. I knew that almost half of the people that were going to choose me were going to choose me on the spot and pay the down payment on the spot. I had my song and dance down. I knew when people were going to laugh. I knew when they were going to say, "Oh, that's interesting." I knew when they were going to pose an objection and what that objection would. When you have a product that's really dialed in, like painting specifically, you usually know what, after a while. I mean, you're in 500 houses a year, 600 houses a year. You know the patterns, and it becomes pretty easy, and it's really just a matter of being sensitive to the fact that you are going to be in their home, that is their safe space, and that what they want isn't necessarily the product that you're giving. What they want is to become some better version of themselves. Like they want their house to represent who they are, and that is on a different level. It's not a base need. It's not. It's really like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's their aspirational identity. I want, like, you mentioned my background here. Like, I'm super aesthetic driven. I needed everything that I have in here is saying something. I want it to communicate something to my viewer, to whoever's on the other side of this call, because that's important to me. I want my space to represent, who I am. And so in at-home sales, I always tried to tap into that. I always tried to inspire people and help them imagine what their life would be like if their home truly was a representation of who they are. In business to business, there's more decision makers usually. The thing that we've noticed, at least with my product, is it's kind of this cool new thing that people don't really know about. Some people have the Calendly link out there. Some people have like a calendar link and all that, but it's relatively new. It's a relatively new idea, and so we're introducing something that people aren't used to. Whereas painting has been around for over 500 years, and if you have grown up in a community where that maintaining your house and doing that, it's an easier sale for sure. But the difference, I think, is that it's much more about feeling and emotion and safety and concern than it is about return on investment, which is what B2B is about. B2B is like, is this just another thing that's going to cost me money, or is this going to make me money? Because if you're coming in as a salesperson and you're trying to take my resources away, I don't want to hear it, right? But if you come in and you are clearly there to provide a return on investment or make me more money, now I'm listening, right?
Right. What you said prior to the B2B comment is so spot on, especially in B2C, but I still think it can be used in B2B as well. But it's funny that you just said that, because I did a TikTok video yesterday. I started a TikTok account about 5 weeks ago, and my 12-year-old taught me how to do it and everything. So anyway, I did a video yesterday. It actually went somewhat viral. It's got like 15,000 views as of right now. But it simply was about never lead with the product that you sell. You always lead with the problem that you solve, or the feeling that the person is going to have after they own your product or service. And what you said right there is, I think the contractors and the tradespeople that make the biggest mistakes is they lead with what they do rather than how the customer is going to feel after what they do is done. Like, rather than saying, like the tile guy I mentioned, he can just go in and say, well, I can put some white tile in here and it's going to be $16 a square foot and take it or leave it. Or the other guy can come in and say, well, imagine what you feel like when you get out of your shower and you've got this beautiful white tile that you're looking at instead of this old grimy green stuff. It's all about selling with feeling. So what you said is critical. If people are listening, rewind that and listen again, because you have to lead with either the problem you solve or the feeling the customer's going to have after they own your product.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem with a lot of the way that people market or sell themselves, is that they think that their product is, they position the problem as the product, right? It's like, let's say I'm trying to sell a drill, and I might say, well, you need a drill that has power and that's going to be rugged and that's going to endure and has this RPMs. That's not my problem.
Right.
My problem, right? That's not my problem. That's your solution. My problem is that I need a hole.
Right.
Right? That's my problem. I need a hole. Well, why do I need a hole? Well, I need a hole so that I can, install this fixture. Well, why do I need this fixture? I need this fixture because it's going to provide, let's say it's a lighting fixture, because it's going to provide light. Well, why do I need light? I need light so that I can see in my home and enjoy my family at night at the dinner table. Well, why do you want to do that? Because I want to love my life, right? So like it's never like there's too many people taking their product or their service and presenting that like it's the problem. That's not the real problem. The problem is
Right.
deeper than that.
Right. And they'll lead with features and not with the benefits. And like I've gotten I've spoken to what you would consider commodity sales, like copy machine people and stuff that printers and stuff, like you can get them anywhere. So if it's approached as a commodity where it's just a pricing thing, that's what you're going to be considered, and it's never going to be there's nothing special about you as the salesperson.
Right.
But if you walk in and put a story behind the copy machine, or come in and say, imagine the feeling when this will actually churn out 1,000 copies in 1 minute, where this one won't. Imagine that feeling, and you can show up to the meeting with all these copies. You're not talking about the copy machine. You're talking about the feeling they're going to have when the copy machine performs. So it is really a brilliant thing to how to approach sales. And I think you can do it B2B as well. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there needs to be, at the end of the day, if your customers in B2B aren't making more money because of what you're selling them, then that's maybe problematic. But right. Largely people do buy emotionally, and then they justify logically, right?
Right.
It's the feeling that you get, and I don't know what I've noticed, at least in the transition from B2B sales. It's a lot about the consulting aspect of what I give, because it's easy to, especially with software, with products, it's easy to become a commodity, like you said. And if you're just trying to go toe to toe with your competitor on features, I think you're going to lose. It's like if I were to come to you and say, okay, so you need you're hungry, right? And you need a healthy snack, and I said, okay. Here's a clementine, one of those little small cuties, right? I'll sell you this for 80 cents. And then you're like, okay, that seems, I guess that's reasonable. I don't know. And then another guy comes around and says, well, here's a navel orange, and it's $8, right? Or $80, something ridiculously expensive. And you're looking at the two and you're like, I'm not spending that much on even $8 is overpriced for an orange, right? Right. That's comparing commodities, right? It's like it's just useful. It's a tool. But when you start to sell your expertise, when you start to sell who you are as a company, and what you provide for the earth, what you provide for maybe this cutie was manufactured with child labor or something like that. You don't want to support that company at all, and the only way to end the injustice of child labor is to buy this local orange that it's more expensive, but it's done right. So you really have to, you know what I mean? You really have to like. It's about the feeling. It's about what am I. The philosophical stuff, like what am I doing and producing for the world when I make this purchase?
Let's shift over to your book, because you said some things that really piqued my interest there. So the book is called Sprint, but you mentioned that it's based on Scrum. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Tell us what that means and how you took the development or the software development concept of Scrum and moved it over to selling for B2C.
That's a great story. I think anytime you try to anytime you bring something in that's new, or you're trying to solve a problem, it's because there's a crisis going on in your life. And my production schedule was out of control. I couldn't handle it, and I kept bringing in different project managers, and they just kept falling flat on their face. They're great people, really hard workers otherwise. The problem is that I didn't have the problem solved, and so I couldn't show them how to do it right. I couldn't show them how to succeed. And that was one of my failings as a leader, is that I didn't have the recipe for success. And so I'd lost a project manager. My second child was had just been born. There must have been something in the water around, maybe it was the slow season, but my estimator was pregnant and she had her baby a day after we had ours. So I couldn't take, a paternity leave. I couldn't, I lost my project manager. I lost my estimator. I was back in the sales field. I was back handling the schedule, and I was running myself crazy. And I was taking a little bit of a break one night watching a TV show. It was an HBO show. It was a comedy called Silicon Valley. It's a really funny show. And this one episode, they were having a problem with producing fixes and feature updates for their software. And one of the characters is Gabe from The Office. A lot of people know him from Office as the character Gabe. He's like, we need Scrum. And it was just this kind of funny episode, and it's a kind of a funny word. And so I was like, I wonder if that's a real thing. And so I looked it up, and there's just this white paper that's available that was written maybe 2 decades ago on the topic, and I read it, and this light bulb went off, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can use this in painting. This is gonna, this is gonna solve a lot of problems. And so that week I implemented it, and we started going, and here's how it works, and probably I'll try to make it as simple as I can. You take your jobs, your work orders are backlog. You have a backlog. Everybody knows that term, backlog. You take that backlog, and from the top of the backlog, you put that into what's called a sprint. And a sprint is a work period, usually 2 weeks. We ran 2-week sprints, but it could be more. At periodic, we do 3-week sprints, but it's a period of time where you're going to get a certain amount of jobs from the backlog complete. And so what we would do is I would print out the work orders, because tradespeople are old school. I used to give them iPads. They left them at home. It was a complete waste of money. I showed up at the job site. I said, well, where's the iPad? I left it at home. And then he's got these scraps of paper all over the place with notes. I'm like, do you just want me to print the dang thing off? Yeah, that'd be really helpful. Okay. So I said, okay, we're going to print the work orders off. We're going to put them in a folder. Here are all the jobs and tasks that you have to do for the 2 weeks. Okay. And everything was detailed out, had all descriptions, everything that they needed to know, how much time each task was going to take. Who was responsible for it, who was the salesperson on the job, so that they could call the salesperson if they had any question. But they had that folder, and every day of the sprint, you have a stand-up meeting where you ask 3 questions. What did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? And what is standing in your way? Everybody, you have to ask those 3 questions. And today, back when I was running the company, I wasn't doing it this way. Everybody had to do their own stand-up at the job site. If I was doing it today, we'd be doing it all on Zoom. The whole company would be doing it on Zoom, and we would all be sharing those things first thing at the job when we show up in the morning. This is what got done yesterday. This is what we're going to do today. This is what stands in our way. And that would have saved, man, if I knew what was standing in our way, that would have saved so many random trips to the paint store that they were pulling themselves off the job to go get a tray liner or something like that. That would have saved so much productivity had I been doing the Zoom thing across the company. But so anyways, every day you do these meetings, and then at the end of the sprint, you have a review meeting where you review how the week went. You get feedback. It's 2-way. So the estimator has to receive feedback from the production team, and the customer always talks to the estimator in terms of they always go to the salesperson to talk about problems. For some reason, they don't talk to the person that's on the job. They always try to call the office. Just like I don't paint. I'm sorry, you have to talk to the painter. who knows what they're doing. But you got to have that two-way feedback because everybody's got to be able to improve. The estimators need to have more accurate prices. They need to prepare the customer better, and the workers need to have that feedback and hear what's going on. And so every 2 weeks you run those meetings, you run the sprints, and it eliminated the need for a production manager. I could all of a sudden do everything, and ultimately, depending on the size of company, you probably will need one salesperson and one person over the production. But at the size of company that I was at the time, I was able to do it all by myself. And I probably had like 8 painters. I probably had like 8 to 10 painters at that time.
Right. So it took, instead of everybody working on 30 jobs at once, you basically said, we're going to do these 10 jobs these 2 weeks, these 10 jobs the next 2 weeks. So you kind of like you hyper focused on specific jobs rather than just trying to do everything at one time.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. That's fascinating. And I as you were saying that, I was running through my head and some of the companies that I worked at and how that could have, been very helpful, because I think a lot of companies try to do, especially in contracting, they try to, how many times have you heard the complaint, the guy showed up for a week and I haven't seen him in a month now because he's off to do 3 other jobs and he's not right. Yeah, it happens all the time. So that
comes from not being organized and responding to customers that are upset with you.
Yeah, the noisier customers.
Where have you been? Where are you? I've been waiting for 3 months for you to get to this job right now. You get to my house right now, or I want my money back.
Right.
Okay. I'll pull John off of this job and send him out. Right. That's where that comes from. The Scrum, it eliminates that in so many ways. It doesn't completely prevent it, but it makes it preventable.
Yeah. And is that the only part? So that's what the book's about, is the sprint is about that actual system that you have in place.
Yep. So there's 2 components to it. There's the system itself, which is what I described, and then there's the people component. And gotcha. And that's another big piece of it, but I'll probably save that for another conversation. But the thing about systems is that you have to, a system doesn't matter if you don't have the people who will run it.
Right.
Right. And likewise, your people won't succeed unless they have a system. So you have to have the both. A lot of people harp on systems, but the fact is trades, in particular, service businesses, and this is true of marketing companies and any professional service. If you don't have the people who can do it, the system is just going to sit on the shelf somewhere and collect dust.
It doesn't matter. Right. Exactly right. Yeah. You're 100% right. All right. This is awesome stuff, Torlando. Let's get to our question of the week, because this is a good one. And like my audience knows, I get quite a few questions every week, and I always try to pick one that has something to do with the guest, or the guest has some experience in. And this one actually came in, I would say about 10 days ago, right around when you scheduled to be on here. And it was perfect. I pulled it out. It's been sitting over here for about 2 weeks, but this comes from Jacob in Baltimore, Maryland. So Jacob, thanks for writing in. And it's a very cool question, which has to do with trades. And again, it could be applied to small business owners as well. So Jacob writes, I am a roofing contractor with my own business. Your show is excellent. So thank you, Jacob, for that compliment. Quick question for you. What are 1 or 2 ways to make me stand out over my competition? So that's a roofer asking that question. And again, roofing companies are, they could be a dime a dozen. You can shake a tree and a roofing company falls out. And he's going into a house, and it's one of those things where the homeowner's like, I'm going to get 5 estimates because that's what my dad told me to do. I got to get 5 estimates all the time. How did someone like him stand up?
Well, there was a time where we would joke about the roofing companies in town, and we'd say, there are probably 10 different roofing companies in town, but they all use the same 3 subcontractors. That's
awesome. I love it.
And I think one of the things that I've noticed, especially in trades where subcontracting is very prevalent, and I don't, there's hardly enough information from this guy to know how he's doing it.
Right.
But when I've talked to other contractors, one of the biggest pain points that their customers typically have is that, and I got this too from time to time. They say, well, the sales process was really great. The resolution process was really great, but the in-between thing didn't feel like the same company. And so branding isn't just the marketing and sales process, not just the website. It's not just the t-shirt that you wear when you get to the job. Branding is the expectation that people have when you show up, including your people. And so making sure that the whole process, the beginning, middle, and end, feels like the same company, feels like it's all part of one cohesive thing. People fail to brand the production process. You can brand the production process, and you need to. You talked about customers, the homeowners in particular, sometimes being a pain in the butt. It's true, and you know what? They deserve to be, because they're paying a lot of money to get the house prepared for whatever reason, and they work their butts off for that all day long. They work their butts off so that they can have a house that they truly love, and that is a suitable place for their family. They deserve to be picky. They deserve to get premium service. Okay, but if you're not delivering, then they're going to complain. That's just how it goes. But they have to have a process for complaining. Everybody's going to complain, but you need to show them how. And so, one of the things that we did, and I stole this from somebody, but I thought it was brilliant. It was actually a combination of two different people giving me advice. One person said, when you go into the house and have your crew leader do this, say, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, my goal is to have a 5-star review by the end of this project. And if there is anything that we are doing that is going to jeopardize our 5-star review, will you please come and tell me right away? In fact, here's my card. And if you need to call me or text me to let me know about something, will you please do that? All right. That transfers the power from the salesperson who gained the trust to begin with to the foreman who's going to actually be servicing the work. So I combine that with another person said, we have a lot of people in the trades are used to a punch list, and you might, some people might be scared of this idea, but everybody's used to a punch list. We would print out our punch list at the beginning of the job, and when we had that conversation about the review, we would say, if there is anything that we're not doing or that you see, will you please write it down on this punch list? And I'm going to take my magnet, my refrigerator, our company refrigerator magnet, and we're going to put this on the refrigerator so that my crew can see it first thing in the morning. And we're going to attack the problem right then. And so, two things, right? Okay, the customer has a way to complain. They come home after long days of work. They got to get their they got to get dinner on the table. They got to get homework, going for the kids. They got to get baths. They got to get them, and then all of a sudden they notice, oh crap, what's happening over here? Did they, they lose their mind, right? They lose their mind, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and they're texting you, they're emailing you all caps because John left his lunch out. Or somebody left a screwdriver on the dining table. It's like, they're freaking out over this stuff. And it's because you didn't tell them how to complain. You didn't show them how to do it.
That's so smart. That is so smart. Yeah. I have a great story from my in-home selling days. This is one of the best calls. I'm going to have you share one of your best stories too. But I as everyone knows, I sold windows and doors for Anderson, and I had this really expensive high-end home in Newport. And one day the job is going, it's a couple days in, and phone rings, and it's the owner of the home. I had his name in my phone. I pick it up. I'm like, hey, Mr. Johnson, how are you? How's things going? And all he says is, Al, why is there a guy eating food from my refrigerator? I'm like, what? So it turns out this guy owned a big security firm, and he had cameras all over his house. And one of the installers decided, you know what, I'm hungry, and he went into the customer's refrigerator, made himself a sandwich, and had a Coke. And the guy watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that got elevated to the owner, and the guy got a free patio door out of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing. If you want to stand out, you have to make the whole experience consistent. There's nothing worse than having a website. You go, like, put yourself in their shoes. You go on the website, you see this clean website of professional service workers, clean trade clothes, just looking so sharp. The salesman comes and he's got he's got his polo on, he's got his name tag on, he's got his clean duffel bag, and then the day of the work comes and this isn't, in less than 7 seconds, I could have gone with Fred, who charged $2,000 less. I could have.
Yeah. I could have, because I would have gotten the same experience. Yeah,
I would have gotten the same experience.
So Jacob, take that advice. Create an experience from start to finish, because especially in the world of roofing, I've dealt with roofers. I've had some as clients. I've helped some roofers along the way, and it doesn't take a lot for me for you to rise above some of your competition, because unfortunately, you don't have, some roofing guys they're not great competition. You have a good proposal, you have a professional, clean, truck and appearance. You're gonna be ahead of the game just starting there. So that would be how I would answer that as well. So, yeah.
Torlando, just keep those shirts flowing. Give the guys new shirts.
All the time. Keep them out of the dirty shirts.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter, where they're from, what kind of, as long as they're showing up, they're, not, all of us trades, I think we get the same, the same stereotypes. Oh, they're all drunks, they're all on drugs, that sort of thing. You got to vet for that, okay? But if you're asking this question, what can I stand out? Hopefully you're not dealing with that anyway. But it's the presentation. In 7 seconds, your customer is going to make a decision on whether they feel like they got what they're paying for or they didn't. And a lot of it is just that immediate presentation.
Couldn't agree more. All right, Torlando, we're running out of time, but I want you to tell people, first of all, how they can get your book, how they can contact you if you want to talk about your software package, your scheduling package, and if they just want to hang out with you on LinkedIn. So tell people how they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested in the book, it's available on Amazon. You can order it, a hard copy. You can download the Kindle. It's the book is Sprint, the Scrum Playbook for Paint Trade and Craftsman Professionals. It's specifically for paint, but like I said, replace painter with roofer, with programmer, with dentist. Like it's all the same.
Yeah, it's all the same.
It's all the same. And if you want to learn a little bit more about scheduling, and this is going to be really great if you happen to run a team that has multiple salespeople. I think that's really critical when you have multiple salespeople, because I did not need to manage my salespeople's schedules. People came to my website, they typed in their information, they picked a date, and I had two salespeople. It went to one of their schedules, round robin, and I didn't have to manage it. So if you want to talk about that, this right here, my name, it's Torlando, and then .periodic.site. You can actually experience the software. That's my booking site, and you can sign up for a time to talk to me. I love to share, any wisdom that I learned from somebody else that I can pass on to you. I'd love to do that, and we can chat.
And then just go on LinkedIn and type in Torlando. I guarantee you he comes up first because there's not a lot of Torlandos in the world.
That's true. That's true. You got to be careful when you Google it. There's a guy who embezzled some funds, but we're
Torlando Hakes. So remember that. But Torlando is the name, and you will find him. And he's a great guy. I encourage everyone listening. Reach out to him. He's awesome. He loves to talk. I really glad he's part of my networking group on Friday. So, Torlando, thanks for being here tonight. Any last words for our audience?
Nope. Just be good to each other.
There you go, man. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails, episode number 45. I want to thank Torlando for being here. I want to thank you guys for being here and joining us. And we will see you again next time, where we have episode 46 coming up. And I've got another great guest in the wings. Thanks, everybody. We will see you again next time.